Hello, everyone. Welcome to our December forecast, Astro-Tarot. I am Murillo. This is Susheela Kundargi. I'm excited for December. I am so excited for December. I'm glad that November is over. It left us with a lot of good lessons, a lot to think about, a lot of discovery. But it was heavy. It was heavy, and we're in need of lighter energy, of energy that feels much more optimistic, that connects us to a much lighter side of the truths that we discovered in November.
There's a lot of discovery that we may not have wanted. Also, that energy that we've been carrying for months, it's like the rug is, the last little bit pulled out. So we've got to do the stuff now, but it is lighter. It is, and there's so many things going on in December, and I think it's going to be really nice for people.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. I think I always like to go a little bit back just to see where we're coming from, and in order to understand fully where we're going. I mean, look, the last couple of days of November, we have, and we talked about this in our last podcast, the November podcast, we have Sun, Mercury, and the South Node in Sagittarius coming together. The South Node in Sagittarius has represented the release of an old belief system, the release of an old narrative. And this has been in place since May of 2020.
Yeah.
Now, the Sun illuminates. Mercury represents communication, cognitive thought. Those three forces coming together, Mercury, what we think, the South Node, what we released, the stories, that coming together, and the Sun illuminating all of that. We're coming to a point of, I understand now. This is my new truth now. This is the other side, pretty much. I think about what really strong belief systems you have released since May of 2020, with everything that has happened in between, and now to this understanding of, oh my God, this is who I am. This is who I am now. And now December is going to be interesting. It's a lot lighter. It's a lot more optimistic, but energy will move very quickly. We have really big aspects happening, really big events, cosmic events, like one after the other, after the other. And I feel that it's definitely a month of, yes, welcoming all of this energy, but you want to adjust to your new truth. We need a period of adjustment, so that we can really feel, that our body really feels, okay, this is who I am now. And understanding that this new truth, this new belief system will take a little bit of time to fully unfold, for us to fully understand it, for us to fully fill in those shoes.
Yeah, and I think, when we ask for truth, and we've all been asking for things to be exposed and to find out things and, live our authentic lives and all that stuff, a lot of it is not what we expected. It's like, it's not so smooth and easy and free flowing. And, and we've spoken about this before, separately and together, how October, after that retrograde period and everything started to move forward, everybody just thought, oh, everything's going to go direct and everything's going to be just nice. And November was just like, look at all the stuff that you didn't deal with because you were so busy, hunkering down. And now that that's there, we're at the end of the month, and it's like those tower moments of everything completely crumbling away. But it's like you didn't want them anyway.
Right.
And some things you thought you wanted, but you simultaneously wanted the truth, and you simultaneously wanted to have a better life, and you simultaneously wanted to have better relationships, and all those, you can't have all those things coexisting in the same space anymore. So
Right.
I think that's the, that's the vibe that we're going into December. There is that sort of sigh of relief, but it's like, oh yeah, but I still gotta show up and, shine brightly and do all the work. But it is, at least it's moving, which is really nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and one last thing, because of how heavy November was, it is more the emphasis in December, adjust to your new truth. That's why, because it was a lot. It was a really rigorous boot camp of looking within, discovering the stuff, and then it's like, here you go, next season.
Yeah.
The cosmos are interesting in that way. And so all of a sudden, sometimes we think our processes are too slow. And then we
Mhm.
have months like November, and then we're thrown into December and we're like, oh, this is way too fast. So understanding that, yes, it's like we're on the other side
Mhm.
of 2021,
Mhm.
but there's still a bit of an adjustment period, and there's no need to rush.
Yeah.
What is meant for us will find us, and that has been the point, to really align ourselves with what is meant for us, even if we can't see it. That is really what Sagittarius teaches us, the ability to trust what is beyond the horizon.
Mhm.
So we begin the week off, or we begin the month off, with Neptune moving direct at 20 degrees Pisces. And this happens on December 1st. So Neptune has been retrograde since June 25th, 2021. Whenever Neptune goes retrograde, especially in Pisces, which is the sign that it rules,
Mhm.
this is about holding off on really, really massive, boundless dreams and going through this period of cleansing, if you will, of kind of swiping off the superfluous.
Mhm.
Big dreams bring a lot with them as it is, whatever that means. If your big dream is a loving, sustainable, serious relationship, those relationships are lovely, but they come with their own stuff, right? They come with their stuff. You have to, there is work, there is intention that has to be done daily in order for us to cultivate, to preserve that, right? If you want a different career, if you want to be a creative, if you want to go on your own, all of that, beautiful, but it all comes with its own stuff, with its own set of responsibilities. So Neptune going retrograde has represented, what do you need to release now so that you can go in much lighter
Yeah.
into this big dream? And how interesting that the first thing that happens in December is that Neptune, that represents that big dream, goes direct after we have done this really immense introspection in November.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's the funny parts, that how these align. So we have, let's get that there. This is the Knight of Swords, and knights are all champions of things. This is air energy. Okay, so this lighter feeling. Look at, I mean, you can't get lighter than a winged horse, really,
Right.
floating through there. But it's this no nonsense directness, cutting through the BS. It's directed energy, it's cerebral, it's got an intention. Negatively, you could say, well, it has an agenda. So it really depends where your
Mm,
intentions are, but
mhm.
that's what it is. It's like forging ahead with this direct focus, without all the fluff, without all the stuff. Yes, okay, so winged horses are kind of fluffy, but that being said, you're still going ahead with clear vision, directed intention, none of the other stuff that weighs you down. You have to be pretty light to be able to lift a big animal like that up over the clouds. So it's, again, it feels like it's in alignment with that, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And this could be, business, it could be just your inner journey, it could be relationships, it could be anything, but it's like cutting through the BS, because you're not going to carry all that stuff with you.
Right.
It's really,
Right.
yeah. It's a nice vibe. I like it in this deck.
I love that. It looks so lovely. It looks so freeing. It looks liberating.
Yeah.
And essentially December represents that. It represents kind of like this leveling up, this graduation, if you will, of the
Hmm.
last 18 months that essentially represents liberation.
Hmm.
And so Neptune going direct in Pisces on December 1st is definitely an aspect that is a huge part of the new moon eclipse in Sagittarius of December 4th. And so that it's so interesting that we have a new moon eclipse, and eclipses tend to represent endings. And this is the last eclipse of that Gemini Sagittarius series, but it's a new moon, and we begin new things with a new moon. So this is definitely indicative of the the beginning because of an end. So this is especially true if this has to do with internal work.
Hmm.
Think about what you thought about yourself, what your belief systems were about yourself at the beginning of the year versus the end. It's like that part of you, whether you did intentional, deliberate work or you kind of allowed the cosmos to just do what they did with you, um, that belief system, whether you want to adopt it or not at this point, is gone. Or the new belief system, whether you want to adopt it or not, the old one is gone.
The old one
And
is gone.
and so this new moon eclipse in Sagittarius marks a stark like line. It marks a very stark point of believe in yourself. Both Pisces and Sagittarius energy are of boundlessness, are of a lot, are of seeing beyond this physical reality. Sagittarius likes physical reality a little bit more, but it still believes in grander scale things. It still believes in dreaming big. And well, Pisces energy is boundless. There is no physical reality. We are just magical.
Yeah. Yeah. And interestingly enough,
Oh
we've
wow.
got the Ace of Wands, and wands are fire energy.
Mhm.
So in this deck, I think they're called Ace of Inspiration. So, and again, like the other one, there's a lot of sun, there's a lot of warmth in here. It's not cold at all. It's like this igniting of something. So, look at the inspiration coming through. I love this picture because there's it's interesting to me that there's the cacti, because they retain that water. You can go you can make it through the lean season. I think we've made it through that lean season,
Mhm.
doing all that inner work. Everything's been taken away if we didn't sweep it out on our own. And
Right.
there's that first spark, that thing that you can initiate something. You can dream up something. She's got her head held up high. She's this, they're lofty, but she looks confident.
Yes.
There's warmth and inspiration and lots of different things. And is that coming in? Is that going out? It's probably two stream. Inspiration coming in and thoughts going back out. How do you manifest things? What have we been holding off? And the thing with the cacti, they're prickly, they're protective, they're created in such a way. All plant life and everything else has their own little way of surviving.
Right.
So our survival skills they've changed. We had a lot of
Mhm.
defensive survival skills before, but what about now? They're almost like
Right.
warrior skills. They're not like,
Yes.
yeah.
I love that. That's such a great analogy. I love that. I love how bright both of those cards are
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
goes so in line with the fact that this is a solar eclipse. This is illuminating with the power of three new moons.
Hmm.
Um, this new idea, this new belief system of self, and just this knowing. I think that Pisces in this case really harnesses the knowing, the
Hmm.
knowing of what we're capable of, not because of material um not because of material gains we've had in the past, but simply because our internal process over the last 18 months has done a lot to us. It has felt like a dismantling, it has felt like a breaking down, and yet here we are. And yet here we are with new dreams, with new hopes, and that it's okay to be that. And I think that for a lot of people, they were probably at a point in their lives where they didn't feel like they could dream again. They didn't feel like there was,
Right.
you know, I can't dream a new dream. This is my life.
Yeah, when you're sitting amidst all the rubble, it's a little bit difficult to envision that, but
Right.
that's all being swept away, and then you're looking at a clean slate, whether you wanted to or not.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
there right now. And
Right,
so I think that energy, that very energy of inspiration is saying you can dream a new thing. You're here.
right,
Everything is in support of it.
right,
What else do you have to do?
right,
Just sitting on a concrete foundation at this point. You got to build something, put something.
right.
Yeah.
So I think that the next big event is on December 11th, and I love that because it's the Venus, the first Venus Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. And this is interesting because Venus is in its currently in its pre-retrograde shadow phase. It will go retrograde December 19th through January 29th. And during that time, Venus is going to come together with Pluto 3 times.
Mhm.
December 11th being the first one in which Venus is direct. The second time, December 25th, in which Venus is retrograde. And then the third time, March 3rd, 2022, in which, again, Venus at the time will then be direct and out of the retrograde phase. It's important to understand that when a planet does that, especially during a retrograde phase and touches another planet
Mhm.
3 times, for instance, it's a whole story that needs to unfold. Therefore, whatever it is that we are committing to right now, whatever it is that we're dreaming of right now, whatever it is that we're daring to do right now, understand that because of this Venus conjunction to Pluto and what Venus is going to do in her retrograde, we're really not going to see the full unfolding and coming together of this till around March.
Mhm.
So this is why in the beginning, I mentioned this adjustment to the truth, right? And because we're so ready to move forward, we've been just ready to get back to the sense of normal all year long, that anytime that we feel like, oh, maybe this is it, we want to jump in. We want to jump in head first. And we're so eager, which on the one hand is great and totally understandable. But we have to keep in mind all of the internal stuff that we've had to go through in order to truly be ready to receive this. So Venus conjunct Pluto on December 11th represents passionate ambitions. It represents a lot of passion. It definitely represents a lot of passion in relationships.
Mhm.
And I think it's a much more grounded passion. It would be very different if this was a conjunction in fire signs, which could ignite something and then kind of, if you throw water at it, it's not going to last.
Yeah.
But this is in Capricorn. This is grounding energy. And Pluto there in Capricorn, Pluto in Capricorn has represented the dismantling of the status quo.
Mhm.
This passion, this coming together, our ambitions, all of that is asking us, what are our passions? What are our ambitions? What do we really want? What do we really desire in any area of our lives that doesn't have to do with the status quo?
Mhm.
So I want a committed relationship, but I don't have to be married. I want to obviously make a living and have work, but I don't want to work for someone. I don't want to work for a corporation. I want to live a happy life. And that no longer means that it revolves around making a certain amount of money. I just want to live happily. And so this is something that has been going on already,
Mhm.
but this is kind of like the last leg,
Yeah.
the last leg. And how interesting that it has to do with Venus, which represents our ability to receive because it has to do with feminine energy.
And so this is the 10 of Wands, and in this deck it's called the 10 of Inspiration, and it is the last leg. It's that last bit of the burden that you lay down before you start fresh.
Wow.
And that's exactly what that is. And wands, or in this case it's called inspiration, it is a fire energy, but there's nothing fiery about it in its meaning in any of the decks, no matter how it's depicted. It's that heavy burden. So tens, we get to 9 and we start again with a 1 and a 0, and then it goes back to a 1. And so that's what we had here. This is the 1. This is the 10. This is the cycle. And I pulled out more for this because this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is like, you get to put down the burden that you've been carrying. And that is the last one that and when I went to pull out a clarifying card, I got 4 clarifying cards, and they all kind of tell a little story. So
I love that.
Got temperance, which is like balance. And it's interesting too, because we've even got that phase of the moon going in there. So
right.
We were talking previously about that energy sort of flip-flopping back and forth, very polarized energy. This is, again, keeping that balance. Balance is about the cycle, the flow, this nice smooth flow. If it goes fast, if it goes slow, whatever, it's got its own rhythm. There's nothing you can do. You're not going to speed up the phases of the moon. It's like that.
Right.
No matter what you want, the moon does its thing. The daytime does its thing. So talk about grounding energy. We've got, so it's the muse deck. So they're all muses in every card, and it's
beautiful.
The King of Pentacles equivalent. So it is very grounded energy, balanced energy again, so they're in unison. And it's that seeking balance when you're asking to have things reflect balance, and then you come in with something that offsets the balance and wonder why it's not in balance, so we're again trying to align ourselves, like you're saying, to that transition period of like adjusting to the new truth. You come in and go, oh, I got the thing that I wanted. Boom, sit on one side of the scale. Whew! Oh, it's totally off kilter. Well, I want the other thing on the other side of the scale. Boom, it's totally off kilter. So how do we work in that environment to not keep throwing things off? And part of it is letting go of the burden. And then these two things together are really amazing. So we've got the hierophant is the highest form of like spiritual love, self-love, soulmate energy. It's higher learning. It's all those very, very lofty things, but they're very clear. They're not flaky. This is like really divine source information, source energy. And then the Ace of Cups, this is like leading with your heart. This is watery, emotional energy, but there's a little bit of that with all that earth stuff going along. So it's not like you say, it's not this like crazy passionate stuff where everything's lit afire and it's infatuation and, losing your head over something. It's not. It's like being open completely to love. And that's in every sense, the people you work with, the job that you do, the place that you live, the food that you prepare, the conversation you have, the person you talk to on the sidewalk. That's this being open and having it come from a divine place, but then being completely earthy and grounded and balanced, and then unencumbered, unhindered. We're not carrying, you can't do that carrying around all these clay pots.
Yeah. I make that face because I, personally, I'm going through this adjustment of my new truth. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to stop doing things. And it's like, I can't. So it's about what's important. And I love those two clarifying balance cards, because Venus represents balance. It represents, at the very least, the intent to create balance in life. And this doesn't have to mean that you do more or that you take on things that aren't yours. If anything, because it's in Capricorn, one of the gifts that Capricorn teaches us is that less is more.
Yeah, there's a practical element to it, that
Yeah,
why are we burdened down with all of this other stuff? And
right.
the moment you create a little bit of a void, the universe has a chance to fill it up with the stuff that you've been asking for. So,
Right.
you know,
Let it. Let it. I think that Venus in Capricorn and doing what it's going to do, I think connecting with Pluto 3 different times, on the one hand, that reminds me of a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And I love how that unfolded for you in the cards, the way that they came out. But it really is, we have to look at this as the purification of our desires, the purification of the things that are really important. And that is Capricorn energy. It's like, you want to master life, you want to master something, then focus on what actually matters to you
right.
rather than filling up your plate, creating imbalance, and not being able to master anything.
Yeah.
So, because there's power in that, there's power in having a sense of, I'm cultivating a healthy relationship because I'm actually giving time, energy, and attention to it. I'm cultivating a healthy business because I'm not inundating myself with just doing more, but really focusing on what I love.
Mhm.
So those are just two examples, but it is about the purification of this sense of more. What is more? What is your definition of more? Right. So it's really
And that
lovely.
is, that hierophant is like that. It's the divine. It's like, we've got that Capricorn kind of energy of the earth, the king of earth, basically. And
Mhm.
then you've got this divine energy coming in. So you're pulling in what you need. The purification is there, cleansing away all the stuff, getting rid of all the rubble, all the burdens, all the extra stuff that we're carrying around,
Right.
responsibilities of things that are probably not ours. And
Right.
then that love feeling,
Mhm.
this is very liberating.
Yes.
Why does love have all these negative connotations to it, of like, it's difficult, you have to, it's whatever people say. It's not that. It's finding out again, what does that mean? It should be something pleasant.
Right.
Like, love is something pleasant, pleasurable, lighthearted. And if we're doing it right, and it seems like this will be the time to go through that process for a couple of months, of being grounded while you do that, being practical while you do that, apply it in a way where you have the balance of taking care of things, being responsible, enjoying yourself, and opening up to stuff, and then focus on just those few things that really matter, and the rest of it you can put down.
Exactly. Exactly. One last thing about that is be mindful of what comes up during this Venus Pluto conjunction, because I mean, look, it, in itself, it's a very lovely aspect. Like, it's powerful, it's really great. But because Venus still has to go retrograde and connect to Pluto 2 more times after the 11th, understand that whatever you commit to at that time is going to come up for revision. So things that you may not completely see that may excite you, they're going to be exciting things. Um, Understand that they're still going to come to some revision of some sort, and expect that. And that's okay. We're not saying don't do anything. We're just saying be mindful that there's still some unfolding to happen.
Yeah, it's a beginning again, and it's a transition period. And
Exactly.
it's not that those things are going to fall away completely. It's not like to be afraid, well, I'm not going to give it my all because it's probably going to change in 3 months. It's completely the opposite of that. It's like, give it your all, and also understand that you need to practice letting things go when they're run their course, or if it needs to be changed or revised, as you say.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we move on to December 13th, where Mars ingresses into Sagittarius. So in order to understand that ingression, Mars will enter Sagittarius on the 13th and will be there till January 24th. So Mars leaves Scorpio. And the best way to think of Mars in Scorpio, at least how I remember it best, is strategic action. Scorpio energy is extremely strategic. There's something about wanting the sense of control that allows Scorpio energy to look at the minutia, to be able to kind of look at every step, and even like a chess player mind, be a couple of steps ahead. And so that energy of Mars and Scorpio at the beginning, the first half of December, is what might want to make us rush into things. But remember, be strategic, right? Be strategic. Because now that Mars is going to leave that, now that we have like something set in motion, or at the very least an idea, Mars going into Sagittarius that's all fire energy. Mars is fire energy, Sagittarius is fire energy, and it's like forging ahead towards that big picture, forging ahead towards that horizon and beyond the horizon, and just really taking advantage of this sense of newness, right? We just want to really do that. Mars in Sagittarius is very much about living in the now. And it's like, you only live once. I live for today. I'm going to do this today because I could die tomorrow. It can be excessive energy. It can be excessive. While it's exciting, I love a good Mars in Sagittarius. I think that it gives us great energy to put into our projects, put into what is important to us, but just pause a little bit. Remember, like Susheela said, it's a transition period.
Interesting things here. These are very, again, I would say almost conflicting, but it's all about that balance again. So the emotional part of being drawn maybe into the past, of like, oh, but forgetting kind of like all the bad parts of it, of that nostalgia of being like, oh, but when this, whatever, looking at the past with rose-colored glasses. And that kind of hinders us from moving forward, because we're not always looking at things realistically, but we can recreate that moving forward. And I just realized we have a lot of fire and a lot of air, a lot of swords here too. And the queen of swords is, again, very sharp, sometimes, well, we could say bitchy, sometimes like that, a little edgy. So you combine that energy with this energy, and it's again, that testing the waters of like going back and forth of like, when am I too emotional? I'm trying to hold on to this stuff from the past. I'm trying to recreate, oh, I really miss, and wasn't that lovely when that used to happen, or that person, or God, but you want this, but this doesn't have to be, this can be edgy without being bitchy.
I love that.
It can be direct without being snarky, so it's taking the best of this with the best of this, as opposed to living in the past and being,
Right. I love that. That's a really great description of Sagittarius energy, because Sagittarius energy is known for not having any filter when it communicates, right? And it is, and there is an edge to that, right? There is an edge to that. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, that's very honest. That's very direct of you. But we have to keep in mind that everyone is discovering their own truth right now, right? Everyone is discovering their new truth right now. And if theirs doesn't align with yours, that it's okay, that it's almost the point. If there is a connection or relationship, whether it's to someone else or something else, and just the value system differs, the truth, the fundamental truth differs, because we started the month off with an eclipse, there's a lot that's going to be eclipsed out of our lives.
Mhm.
And so Mars going into Sagittarius is also about courageously standing for that new truth. Courage, Mars, new truth, Sagittarius. So far more than thinking that this is just about doing and acting and getting things done as quickly as possible, this is more about protecting that new truth,
Mhm.
courageously standing by it, being a warrior to it, because in order to get to this new belief system, it wasn't easy. We had to go through a lot, internally and externally. So,
Yeah, and there's that
yeah,
feeling of, there's this feeling of integrity here with this queen, because this is, if truth is subjective to a certain degree, then there's universal truths that whatever we believe is kind of irrelevant. There's other factors going on beyond our limited human perspective that would be the ultimate truth, I guess. But from our perspective, we each have our own truths, and and the the negative aspect of this would be thinking that our individual truths are the right way and not allowing other people to have their truths. And so
right,
you see a lot of people, when they find their voice, can be really rude and abrasive,
right,
because it's like, well, it's the truth, and they'll come out and say something. And you also have to be kind to people. You still have to be compassionate and allow for those other perspectives to be there. So it's like, yes, you can be firm in your truth and be directed and do that, but do it for you, not
mhm,
to be tyrannical or argumentative or, um, just confrontational or contentious all the time. There are issues that are contentious, of course,
right,
in anything, but it's like, this feeling, there's this going back to this sort of youthful, playful, childlike way of, yeah, kids see the truth and they'll say it, but it comes from a place of innocence,
right,
and hopefully now we know better and we can say things in ways that are kind to people and try and bridge that gap if there is something contentious,
mhm,
and it doesn't detract from the individual truths.
right.
And that's the challenge of, like, now you have more information or you have better skills and you've learned things and you've been through things. How do you how do you behave? You know, how do you
Right,
behave? You still have to be mature and have integrity and be kind. That's like a much more elevated feeling, and it's like we hopefully have learned that through this time of not being so sort of pig-headed or bullying our truth out there and making it too
yes,
sharp or too pointed or you know
absolutely. One of the lower manifesting energies of Sagittarius is self-righteousness.
Mhm.
And for the last 18 months, the South Node in Sagittarius has represented the release of that self righteousness in order to be more open minded. So now, like just like Susheela said, remember compassion, because it has taken you some time to get to this new space within yourself, but it has also taken others the same. So it's okay to courageously set boundaries for your new truth, but while remembering that other people are in their own process as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to respect the other boundaries and
exactly.
not be waving that sword all over the place.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, also on December 13th, we have the Mercury in Capricorn ingression. And Mercury is coming from Sagittarius, from that no filter communication, the tendency to exaggerate a little bit, but also carry a lot of optimism and great outlook on life with that Mercury in Sagittarius. And now Mercury going into Capricorn till January 1st. This is about, okay, how does, again, this new belief system, this other side of you that you now believe to be very much a part of you, these big dreams, how do we now bring that down to Earth, Capricorn Earth energy, and really work with that Venus retrograde energy to swipe away anything that, or sweep away that is anything superfluous. And it's, again, less is more of like somewhat of a strategic energy, more of making definitive decisions of this will stay, this will go, in order to lighten the load, in order that for the road ahead to not feel as heavy as the road that we're leaving behind.
So we've got another night here. This is the night of materials, which is pentacles or discs. Wow. And that's the slowest moving. I mean, mercurial energy is usually quick and fast paced, but the Capricorn part makes it the slowest moving, quick energy you could have. So this is like the slowest horse in the deck. And it's a deliberate, steady, slow, let's do it the right way. Let's, yes, I am a horse. I still behave like a horse. I still do all that stuff, but I'm steady and I'm careful and I'm cautious and I'm grounded and I stop and this is what this guy is, or girl, looks like a girl.
Right.
Boy, horses don't wear roses in there.
I feel like that's such a lovely card, by the way. Yeah. That deck is beautiful.
The muse deck.
Yeah.
So yeah, the knights in this deck are just the horses.
Okay.
And yeah, and they're champions of things, but this one, it represents earth energy, and so they're champions of things in a very slow, almost turtle-like way. It's like, yes, I'll get there. This is what I'm doing. This is how it's going. I'm still moving. I'm not looking back. I'm very pleasantly, happily going there, nicely decorated with,
right.
Everything's cool. Yeah.
I love that. I feel like what's coming up for me right now is this play between all of the personal planets, Venus, Mars, and Mercury, or at least some of the personal planets. And so you have Venus in Capricorn, the purification of a desire, right? So let's say that this has to do with a relationship, just to kind of put some real life example context to this. Venus in Capricorn connecting with Pluto, it's the purification of a desire. So let's say that you're in a relationship, it's ready to go to the next step. The purification of a desire. What do we really want? What do we really want? Do we need to get married, for instance, to be in a committed relationship? Then Mars in Sagittarius can be pretty anti-establishment, right? So it kind of goes hand in hand with that Pluto and Capricorn energy, which is the dismantling of the status quo. And so Venus in Capricorn wanting to really be sure of what we're getting into next. Mars in Sagittarius saying, no, we're ready. Let's do it now. And then Mercury in Capricorn coming in, supporting that Venus in Capricorn and saying, okay, but let's just, if we're going to move in together, for instance, how much money do we need to save? What lease are we going to sign? Is the lease going to be under both our names? Where are we going to live? All of these things that are very logistical, but are also very real. They're very adult. Capricorn is the adult of the zodiac, if you will. And so this internal adult, the responsible adult, making sure that everything along the way is taken care of so that we have something really legitimate to stand on in the long run. And so I feel that all of this energy, kind of as we're headed towards, the middle of December, is all of that. Yes, it's exciting. Of course it's exciting. We're going to move in together. I'm going to get the new job. I'm going to do the things. And I'm going to give it my all, give it my fire, but I'm also still going to mind the pace.
Yeah.
It's
almost like,
lovely.
it's almost like carrying a lantern with you, you know, like a, with a flame in it. You know, it's not,
Mhm.
you're not running around again with a blowtorch. It's like you have a nice controlled fire in a thing, and you're walking carefully with it, and it's illuminating and it's doing its thing. And if it gets cold, you can put your hands on the glass and it'll be nice and warm. And it's, you know, it's just because something is fiery doesn't mean it has to be a forest fire. So it's like we, our mindset of what something is kind of can change shape a little bit here.
Absolutely.
It needs to change shape. It is changing shape.
Yes, yes. I love those metaphors. Um, the reason that I felt the need to kind of put all of that together is because on December 18th, we have the full moon in Gemini. And this full moon is going to trine Jupiter in Aquarius at 27 degrees. So there's a lot to say about this. First, during full moons, it's something that comes to light, usually something that has to do with our emotions, our needs, and how those are met or not, the recognition of how they're met or how they're not, or how they can be met in the future. Full moons are very emotional. We act in very emotional ways. We make decisions from an emotional place. The good thing about this is that Gemini will kind of subside that. And I think because of Gemini's air quality, the ability to be able to look at facts before making a decision, I think that's going to be really helpful. The second thing is that it's trine to Jupiter, and Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, the season which we're in still in December 18th. Jupiter expands and Jupiter exaggerates, and Jupiter is on its way out from Aquarius into Pisces. Whenever we have a planet on its way out from one side and into the next, there is an energy of, again, an ending in order for a new beginning. Susheela and I were just talking about this before we started the podcast. We're so excited about Jupiter and Pisces. Like, we're so excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. But it's not going to come any sooner. Like, it's going to come when it's going to come, and it's going to do what it's going to do because it's Pisces, right? And so the third thing that I want to mention about this is that this full moon in Gemini of the 18th closes off a cycle, a 6-month cycle of something that started on June 10th, because that's when we had the new moon in Gemini. So all of those things represent kind of like, again, a graduation of you will, if you will, like the moving into something else. We're closing off cycles. This month is a lot about closing off cycles.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. We have ingressions, we have Neptune moon direct, we have a full moon, a new moon eclipse, we have Jupiter leaving Aquarius and won't be there for another 12 years. So it's a lot, and we feel that in our bodies. So this full moon in Gemini will definitely be about announcements, about like proposals, perhaps life opportunities. I think it's lovely, lovely full moon in Gemini. It's great for creatives who want to release something, who want to have like an end of the year sell in something. Um, the energy goes a little more micro because it's Gemini than macro. So what that allows us to do is to, again, really focus on what's in front of us. Focus on what's in front of us. Like Susheela mentioned, focus on what you can control. Focus on the facts that are in front of you. Yes, you still have the big picture, you still have the big dreams, but those can't come to fruition if we don't take care of the day-to-day stuff.
Mm-hmm. So talk about beginning and ending cycles. We have the zero, the big reset. Let's see, put it over here.
Yeah.
With the, so hopping off into the light over this little, I mean, it's a tiny little ladder, and it's the Fool. It's that innocence again, taking a leap of faith. Like, we've done all this stuff, and you're getting the zero. You get to jump ahead. You get to close out one thing, start over again. And you know that zero really means like the spotless mind a little bit. You know, you get you get to actually forget about some of that stuff. you know, some of the cynicism and some of that other stuff, if it's going to block, if it's going to hinder what it is you're trying to manifest, just actually forget about it. Like
Right.
take the lesson part, you know, and drop the rest of it. The rest of it is like that burden that we saw way up the way there. And then
Mhm.
it also, that practical thing, the 3 of materials or 3 of discs, 3 of coins or whatever, it is closing off something. It's like teamwork, but if you are wrapping up something, it can be wrapped up really neatly.
Mhm.
Just
I
maybe
love that.
no gifts. But you know, your business, you're closing something down, you're ending a relationship, or any of those pieces, even if it's just like maybe tidying up your office or whatever it is, you can actually complete tasks at this time. And you know, that full moon energy of like these 2 things combined, and this even goes into the next thing that we'll talk about, the Venus, you know, in Capricorn. It's that same energy that kind of carries over there, but this starting over. And that full moon, you know, usually the new moons are the intention setting times or whatever, but it feels like this one is like almost like an intention setting for the entire next year, at least the first 6 months of the next year.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
very much a liberating energy, and it's a little scary because you don't know what's on the other side of that thing. It's like
Mhm. Right. Right.
the universe
That's
has you, because we're at 0, it goes all the way up to 21 again. So there is something, there is a number 1 and number 2 all the way going, you know, forward. So there is something, the universe does have a plan. It's a
yes.
little bit of faith.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and to what Susheela said, we move on to December 19th, which is when finally Venus starts actually going retrograde at 26 degrees Capricorn and will remain retrograde till January 29th. So Venus is always retrograde during 40 days. It's retrograde, Venus's retrograde period is of 40 days. But its entire cycle of pre-retrograde, retrograde, and post-retrograde, and then going direct, that's actually 100 days. So understand that whatever it is that is being revisited, redefined, purified, if you will, during this time, during December 19th and January 29th, this is something that you were already thinking about kind of at the beginning of November,
Mm.
especially with how November was. Whatever came up is still processing. And then post retrograde, from pretty much through all of February, is again an adjustment period to this new foundation. So again, just these themes of less is more. And a lot of the questions that are going to come up are, what do I really want in this, right? We have, again, we're going back to this dream, we're going back to this desire, but what do I really want this to look like? What
Mhm.
do I really want in this? It's not so much about asking, what do I really want from scratch? I don't think we're there at that moment anymore. I think, what do I really want in this? It's definitely about the reconnection to your divine feminine self, whether you're a man or a woman, because this is exactly what Susheela again mentioned earlier. When we are able to do and control what we can control, and then take a step back, that's co-creation with the universe. You have to allow the universe to come in and fill its 50%, if you will, right? So, in our intentional connection to the divine self, to feminine energy, to receptive energy, we can say, how do I want this to look? What do I really want in this? What does that look like? It will most likely represent letting go of a lot of things a little bit more, because remember, we're purifying with Pluto there. But again, it lightens the load. And so connecting with divine feminine energy is about, I can receive. I know that I've done enough, and now I can sit back and receive. It'll raise questions about, what do I love about myself? How do I love myself? How do I show myself love? And I think that a lot of this is going to have to do and is currently having to do with, do I measure myself according to my level of productivity, according to how much I make, according to the title of something? And all of those themes, I bring them up because they all have to do with Capricorn. Pluto is there. We're dismantling all of that. And for those that have been with me for a while, I've been talking about the dismantling of the status quo forever, for the last 2 years. But Pluto is still there in Capricorn. So this dismantling of the status quo is very true. And here we are 2 years in of me talking about this nonstop, and Venus is now going to do what she's going to do. There's a purpose. There's a purpose to that. So how do I make myself, my well-being, my happiness a priority without giving it up? There's a balance, right? The sense of balance. I can be successful on my own terms while making my happiness, my peace, my meditative practices, what I eat, how I exercise, while making all of those things a priority. Things have switched. Things have flipped around. And so understanding that even if you want everything, do you really want everything? Do you really want to have to do everything? So that's what we're going to be purifying, redefining during Venus's retrograde period. All of those things that used to define success and respect from society, we don't care anymore. We don't care.
Yeah. And this is so lovely. You talk about foundations. This is essentially what this card means. And it's usually depicted by 4 pillars, but it's the Muse deck. So we've got these 4 pillars depicted as these 4 feminine energies.
Oh my God.
And you can see really carefully here, there's these strings or these beams going up. And those are those 4 pillars. And it is about foundations, but look at where that foundation is sitting. It's sitting up in the clouds, and they're holding it together. They're all holding hands together. So very different looking foundation. And part of that foundation is we brought the foundation with us, if you remember. The tower came and it went, and this is the remnant that's left. We have the foundations. We have the knowledge and the experience. And like you said, we're not starting from scratch. We're not building a foundation now. The foundation is the thing that all of our experiences have brought us. Whatever age we're at or whatever point we are in our life, everything that's brought us here is the foundation. That's what we're building. And so it's to remember that, like to actually value that foundation that we're bringing here. And there is a very divine feminine energy about this. And it's often depicted as, a marriage card, or purchasing a home, or, that kind of vibe, an engagement, a marriage, a ceremony of some sort. But there is a feeling of a ritual here in a way. And it's almost like admiring that, this is very Venus energy, and they're sitting on a piece of ground up in the air. Like,
right.
I don't think I could have painted Venus retrograde in Capricorn any better than this.
Right.
It's really funny.
It's resting on divine feminine energy.
Yeah. Up in the cloud, and yet it's very solid, and they're all holding hands, and they're sitting up straight, and they got it. Right. Like we have, wherever we are, we have a foundation.
Right.
I think that's what they're saying.
And I just, that screams to me, that feminine energy screams energy of a matriarch. And look, Pluto dismantling the status quo is Pluto dismantling a patriarch.
Yeah.
Capricorn represents the patriarch because it's hierarchical.
Yeah.
So the reason that I keep talking about this is because it's so important. It's so important. We haven't had a Venus retrograde in Capricorn since 2011. Those are very 2 different time periods. And they're not very far away from one another. It's only 10 years. And the shift that the world has taken in 10 years is astounding.
Yeah.
So it is our opportunity to recalibrate, I feel.
Mhm.
There has been so much happening, obviously, in the last 2 years, let alone in the last 10 years with technology and all of that. Let's ground ourselves in us. We follow that Venus. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's, when you're talking about the hierarchy in that other system, this doesn't have that. They're all holding that space together, linked in together cooperatively,
Mhm, mhm.
and very firmly, and yet they're floating up in the air. So it combines all those elements, and that is very different than a decade ago. I mean, a decade, I can't believe that's a decade ago, but
Right.
a lot has happened. That is, yeah.
So with that, what follows is December 21st, we have the December solstice. And so this is when the sun enters the sign of Capricorn. So this opens up an energetic window of time. The next 3 months, this solstice, there's a chart for the solstice alone that gives us the energy for the following 3 months, which is till March, which
Mhm.
is when Venus finally comes out of its post retrograde shadow phase, right? This is here in the northern hemisphere, it's the winter solstice. It's a time of where we withdraw a little bit. We don't go out as much. It's darker. We're almost hibernating. And so during all of this time, there's a rethinking. Are all of the responsibilities on my plate absolutely necessary? Right? Is it necessary for me to do all the things? We're valuing our relationships more. There's an interesting focus on relationships during a Capricorn season. Obviously, it has to do with Venus and Capricorn and it going retrograde, but I can't help but think what comes up for me, the image that comes up, I can't help but think of kind of hibernating with a partner
Mhm.
and seeing how the dynamic is now. Because the last Venus retrograde that we had was in Gemini in 2020 in June. So we had just started the lockdown in a lot of
Mhm.
places.
Yeah.
And so being together with partner all the time was something very different for a lot of people. And now here is the following Venus retrograde in Capricorn, 18 months later, as we're finishing those eclipses. How do we do now? How do we do now? I find that really interesting. Yeah.
How we do now, we got death here. And it's amazing. I laughed when this card came out for this spot, because you can see there's a face there
Mhm.
in the upper part, and then this moth emerging, this cocoon, this like duality again. It's usually death and birth, and death and rebirth, or what looks like death, so that hibernating in a cocoon, stuck in there. And how awkward that must be for the caterpillar, really. But then it emerges as this other thing, this completely different thing. And it's so funny for a winter solstice, for that energy to be there. So
Mhm.
it's like those last pieces, like you still have to, there's this feeling of nurturing yourself and quieting yourself and doing all those things. But then there's also that, the partner component. It's like, and even the dualities of yourself, the dualities in a combined relationship. There's the yin and yang within yourself, the yin and yang with you and the universe, the masculine and feminine, all of that stuff. So
Mhm.
it's all nestled in together in one little cocoon. So it just
Right.
really made me laugh when this card came out for this, because again, it's always so fitting.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a beautiful card in itself.
Mhm.
That's a beautiful card in itself. So we move to December 24th. This is a really important date. This is the last exact square between Saturn and Uranus. Again, for those of you who have been with me for a while, this is something I've been talking about the whole time. We had three of them. Three. Essentially, the square never let up. We, we were in a Saturn Uranus square the entire year, the entire year. The 3 dates were just happened to be where the square perfected in terms of degrees. But that square never let up, man. So when you think about like the sense of tightness, the sense of like anxiety, the sense of like taking one step forward and two steps back, like you couldn't figure out your footing, that was your Saturn and Uranus. And that contrast, I remember also talking about contrast at some point in the year. Contrast always really makes things clear because contrast shows us, without a doubt, what we don't like. Therefore, it shows us at the very least what we don't want, leaving room for what we could want, what we actually want, what is possible, right? So that tension, the cosmos didn't let up at all this year. And I think that it was to really slow down this very human nature, especially the conditioning that we have. I like to call it the Amazon Prime conditioning, that we're so used to ordering things, getting them the next day or in 2 days. And it's like, that's just the way of life now. We don't have to wait 7 to 10 business days, hardly ever anymore. In that conditioning, we forget that life, our processes, don't work in that same way.
Yeah.
So Saturn square Uranus, we had the first one, February 17th. I know that February 2021 was a really interesting month for a lot of people. It started off the year with a bang. The second one was June 14th. At that time, we were having a Mercury retrograde and we were in eclipse season. That was interesting. And now we have the last exact square on December 24th. Just like Venus and other planetary alignments have done, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Mhm.
February, June, December, like smack in the beginning, smack in the middle, smack at the end, right? So this has represented Saturn structures in Aquarius, new, Uranus, the rupture of in Taurus, tradition, what feels comfortable, and the constant battle and contrast between those two things. And how do we build our life around that? So it can represent energy of very all or nothing, but I think that that's our very human approach again. Like, oh, well, if it doesn't work that way, then it's gonna work this way. And what that constant black and white thinking, that harsh contrast constantly that we create, beat us up. It beat us up. Now, it doesn't have to be that way now, and I don't think it'll be. I think we're clear, we're much more optimistic. The energy overall is lighter.
Mhm.
This is just about that final, like, oh, okay, it's kind of like a making sense. Oh, okay, that's why all the contrast in the year. And now we're so used to the Saturn square Uranus alignment that now it doesn't feel so heavy. Now there's a sense of appreciation almost for the contrast. And again, it has only served to make things clear. That theme of what do I really want? And that's very much fixed energy. Both Aquarius and Taurus are fixed energies, and fixed energies have this gift of teaching us that anyone with fixed energy in their chart, a lot of it, or very important placements, they're very much about, if I love it, I will do it. And if I don't, then I won't. And I've learned to appreciate that a lot.
Mhm. Well, it's no surprise that we got the Emperor here. This is the divine masculine energy. And of course, it's depicted like this because it's the Muse deck, but it's very Saturn, it's very square, it's very yang energy. And so when you talk about that polarizing thing that we keep talking about the flip-flopping all the way from one extreme to the other, the contrast, the black and white. This again is talking about how we're moving into that feminine energy. We're trying to embody that feminine energy and connect to all of that, the divine feminine, but we can't go completely into that, because then we're, so it has to be active, receptive, active, receptive. It's this flow back and forth. And that's what, you talk about the structures and, all the active analytical thinking, constructing, all of that is this energy. And then you do the creative, receptive, intuitive feeling as the feminine energy. So they're still, it's all, I've noticed that every card, or at least the pairs of cards, if not the individual cards, are still talking about that balance. Otherwise those scales keep tipping.
Yeah.
Finding a way to have them flow nicely. And I like the way that she's depicted here, sort of almost like in a flamenco type stance, with all the people around. And it's just like very powerful, very potent.
Right.
But in the flow, there's lots of things here that are flowing, talking about that flow. So
Yes.
it's not rigid. It's not these rigid structures.
Right.
But it's like maybe a useful structure or a restructuring.
Yes.
A more useful structure, balanced structure.
I love how this theme of balance has come up with the cards so much, because I don't think that I really realized that theme for December until I'm looking at the cards, and it makes so much sense. At the very least, I couldn't put the right words to it, and then the cards did it for me. But I find it interesting that's kind of like the underlying theme for everything above it. And December is not one of those months usually. It's a month where we really don't have any balance or restrictions. We really go all out. We eat all the food. We go to all the parties. We drink all the alcohol. We give all the gifts. We spend all the money. So pay attention to that, because if the cards are telling us we need a sense of balance, if Venus is the energy of desire and of the sweets and of the yumminess and of money, but it's in Capricorn, and she's redefining a little some things in Capricorn. Less is more. Don't worry so much about spending all the money. Don't worry so much about pleasing others. Mind your values. Mind your goals. Mind what is important to you fundamentally.
Well, it's like being mindful in any sense. You could sit at a feast table and be a glutton and devour everything.
Right.
Or you could also sit with your honey and put a little blindfold on and taste one little chocolate and be mindful in that moment. And that's kind of the contrast of what we're experiencing. We're going from that big gluttonous table to those sweet little moments of being completely present and having all your senses pay attention to that one little sweetness.
Yes, absolutely. And on December 25th, we have the second conjunction between Venus and Pluto in Capricorn. And at this point, Venus is retrograde. Again, the notion of less is more it just goes so perfectly with the example that Susheela brought up. It's like we don't have to be gluttonous. We can be present in this very sweet, intimate moment with someone. It's very different. And that's what whether we realize it or not, that's what we're shifting into. This very lovely, delicate, intimate, feminine energy that doesn't have to be so forceful, that doesn't have to prove anything.
As you're saying that, that the card that I have for that Venus conjunct Pluto in Capricorn is this. So, all these horses, it's the chariot, but there's no chariot here. It's being pulled along at whatever the pace is, dictated by everything else external. Standing there, just like letting this light pour through. And she is still connected. There's little strings attached to all of these horses. So there is still some way of navigating. You're not being dragged along willy-nilly, but
That's beautiful.
but it's, there's all this magic with divine timing. Sometimes we have to realize that we don't know better and let the universe do its thing.
Absolutely. So we finished the month off on a really sweet note. And I think both Susheela and I, like I mentioned earlier, we're really looking forward to this. On December 28th or 29th, depending on where you live, Jupiter will finally enter Pisces and will traverse the entire sign of Pisces till May 10th. For those who don't know much about astrology, for a planet to go through an entire 30 degrees of a sign in 6 months, less than 6 months, is extremely fast, extremely fast. Jupiter is going to do a lot of other things. It's going to go into Aries, back to Pisces, all of that stuff. And we'll obviously talk about it as the months move forward. But Jupiter in Pisces is more than anything like expansion through divine connection. And look, this doesn't have to mean like that you have to go to church, that you have to like meditate every day. It's really expansion and healing through remembering who you are. And the fact of the matter is that we are extensions of divine energy. All of those words, I get it. They're so saturated with a lot of Instagram posts. I get it. But when we get very realistic about it in a very Capricornian way, the whole point, the last 18 months has been about coming back to this internal strength that is nothing like what we've been taught that strength is. If anything, strength is understanding that there is this limitlessness that does exist within us and that we have to tap into it. And that when we do, that flow of let go and let God, let go, let goddess, let go, let the universe, that flow, that balance that we've been talking about, that dance, right? That really beautiful dance that does have the capacity to exist. That's Jupiter in Pisces. It has the ability to transform or to heal this masculine wound. The masculine wound that feels that it needs to constantly do and attack and compete. Pisces is anything but that. So yes, we still, because Jupiter is expansive and Pisces is boundless, we can go to extremes with that, like anything else. We can disassociate. We can definitely, Pisces in the zodiac has a lot to do with drugs and alcoholism and altered states of mind. So I feel that a lot of people the energy is going to lend itself to have certain trips, right? What kind of experience do you want to have? It doesn't have to be at an altered state. You can just have it by allowing your life to unfold by co-creating with the universe. There's something magical in that. So with that said, be mindful of the work that you do put in. There is still some sense of discipline that needs to come along. We still need to have some boundaries, because as lovely as Jupiter and Pisces is going to be, lack of boundaries is still lack of boundaries. So I can see that manifesting in a lot of other ways that aren't so pretty.
Yeah.
Which is why we still need to be grounded.
Yeah, there's a lot of escapism and fantasy and illusions, and
right.
We can definitely go down that rabbit hole. But I got 3 cards for that, and just looking at the colors of these, there's a different energy. We had all the yellow ones and the blue and the golds, and we kind of have them nicely linked together here. So the first one is the Knight of Cups, or the Knight of Emotions in this one. And this is typically like an offer. coming to you. It's typically like an offer of love. So we've asked for things. We've all asked for things over all of this, you know, various forms of lockdown, mental lockdown, physical lockdown,
Yes.
things that we have been blocked from doing, blocked from manifesting. Put it over here, it's a little better. And here we have this offer of love. But this could still be a business offer. It could still be a romantic. It's so many different things, but it's coming from that place. This is like the universe down on one knee offering you this thing. And at that moment, do you go, no, 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 thanks. This is not going to happen again so nicely, so beautifully for a long time. This Pisces vibe. Look at that. This is connected to your offer, you know? The Eight of Materials, I don't think it's the Eight of Discs. I don't think I've seen it depicted so beautifully in any other deck, because usually it's about work and it's all these little discs that you have to do and study and fix and repair and learn and hammer away at. And in this case, it's just sort of like, okay, I can multitask, but it's all these things that blossom. It's not like these mundane things. Like you can still multitask and do the 8 little things that you have to do at the same time and learn the new skill, but like make it something beautiful, not drudgery, you know? And so when you have that offer, this offer coming in, this is so nice. Like, yes, I would like to spend my 8 discs in this way. It's just blossoming. And so if you want to blossom even more, we have one of the best cards in the whole deck, which is the 10 of Cups, the 10 of Emotions. And it's got this beautiful mandala at the top and all the people holding hands and they're all rejoicing. It's very similar to the sun energy. And this is beyond wish fulfillment. It's really like that happily ever after. So there is that air of, there's a little bit of fantasy and a little bit of illusion and a little bit of dreaminess about it. But it is possible. That is what it's saying, that it is, you can actually attain this in a physical sense, in a real sense, instead of in a altered state. You can actually have this, whatever this means for you, all of these things. So you have the offer and you have the practicality and you have the happily ever after. So I think that's why we've been doing all this hard work all this time, so that we can get it all cleared up out of the way just in time for this period in time to happen. So you can actually accept that offer when it comes in, enjoy the fruits of your labor when it comes in, pick and choose how you want to multitask because it's going to be there.
I love, do you mind putting those cards up again? Because obviously we're talking about the Jupiter ingression into Pisces, but remember guys that this is all happening while Venus is doing her thing, right? So to me, when you pulled up the middle card, the materials card,
yeah,
to me, that screams Venus in Capricorn. That feminine energy is Venus in Capricorn, like the rebirth of. Look, Venus in Capricorn will never stop being feminine energy that wants to work and that enjoys working. It will never stop being that, right? The difference is that card shows that she's now juggling things that are joyful.
Yep.
Look at that. That's a Venus in Capricorn.
And majestically.
Absolutely.
And with ease. And
exactly.
Yeah.
We have to remember that. I know that there are different opinions about multitasking, but there are some that are just really good at it. I see charts and it's like your brain just works that way. Others, not so much. Not that one is better than the other. They just have different abilities, right? That last card that you pulled up, the mandala. So when Venus goes retrograde during the 100-day period, direct retrograde, all of that, Venus in the sky creates a mandala. It's called a Venus star point. It's a whole thing, but just so you know, I'm saying these things, Google them, and you'll see. Venus creates a mandala during that. It's called the Venus start point. It touches 5 different points of the zodiac. Those 5 different points represent different parts of the chart, a whole thing.
Yeah.
But these cards are picking up how this Jupiter and Pisces energy is saying, yes, you can still have the things and have ambitions and have desires, but it doesn't have to be miserable.
Exactly.
The work doesn't have to be miserable.
Yeah. And, you know, we were always that happily ever after thing that was always kind of vacuous in our fairy tales. You know, it's like you do all this stuff of the story of the fairy tale, and then happily ever after. Nobody ever knows what actually happens. Nobody's talking about who's doing the vacuuming and who's repairing the roof and what happens when the basement floods, and nobody talks about that. And that's that practical energy of being able to do all those skills. And we don't have to be making ourselves busy with multitasking, but we're always multitasking. Like we're sitting at work or we're working from home and you've got laundry going and answering the phone and making sure the dog is fed and, you know, doing all these other things and
Exactly.
you know, picking the kid up from school or whatever's going on. And so you can do it like this, but just focus on those priorities. And that is part of the happily ever after. And it's whatever that happily ever after is for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the multifacets of life. We're redefining how they should look or how they should feel. And what we're discovering, and I think that Jupiter and Pisces is going to help us get in touch with that, is that we get to decide.
Mm-hmm.
We get to decide. Why? Because we are divine energy expressing itself in human form. And we're coming back to that. I feel that that's going to be much more of a truth, that truth will unfold and fully flourish, especially by the end of 2022,
Mm-hmm.
where we'll really feel like, oh man, I can really live my life on my own terms. Yes, there's some still restrictions. We still have to, you know, pay taxes, follow laws, do all the things. But what we can control, it can just be peaceful to us, and it can feel productive to us, and it can feel like we've accomplished something according to us. And that's very healing. I think that that's probably one of the sense of not enoughness is probably one of the biggest wounds that we need to heal collectively
Mm-hmm.
for so many reasons.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that being able to redefine all those things that we were told that we couldn't do will allow us to walk into that happily ever after space, doing the things that we want to do while still doing it open-heartedly, while still being, you know, juggling those 8 discs at the same time, whatever we choose them to be. I mean, they don't have to be like that yang energy of, you know, that strong masculine energy of go, 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 go. We can still do all these different things. Maybe, you know, put down 5 of them and pick up 5 new things that are entirely different, that actually feed your soul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And releasing the guilt that can come for not doing all of the things.
Yeah.
Right. Right. This was so lovely. I love that deck. That is such a beautiful deck.
It is the Muse deck.
Okay.
No,
Beautiful.
deck. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. So that is December, everyone. I love it. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what the eclipse brings, the full moon, all of it. I really am looking forward to it. And I feel that it's going to lead us into a lovely new year. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm grateful. I'm open. And thank you to those who have joined us in the last 3 months that we started this. It's so much fun always. And we will see you in the new year.
Yes, yeah, I enjoy it as well, and I'm very thankful to all the people who say that it really helps them navigate the month ahead. And some people even look at it 2 or 3 times throughout the month, which is really great too. So yeah, we
Yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.